Welcome to our YouTube channel. We're so glad that you found us. Please enjoy this inspiring interview with Dan Wetzel, where he was interviewed live at the Awakening Together Retreat House by Anne Blanchard. For more information on our non-dual community and the free resources we provide, we invite you to visit our website at awakening-together.org. We hope you enjoy the satsang and hope to see you live in our sanctuary.
It's all yours, Miss Ann.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jonna, and thank you, everybody. It's great to be here with everybody. Good to see you guys. So we are here for our satsang interview for this month. The month shall apparently go nameless, but it's really great to have you. So we have with us Dan Wetzel, and we're going to be learning lots about Dan and kind of your journey. And yeah, you ready?
I'm looking forward.
All right, there you go. Okay. Well, good. I think it's always, or at least it's always interesting for me to know when someone first felt kind of that call or that interest, that desire to know, however we put that. So maybe you could just start us right at the beginning.
Yeah. There's a thing about, telling stories. You don't want to get too stuck in stories, but what I've found is the ones that I've shared with just people I've met along these last 45, 50 years have sometimes been helpful. And so it started for me. I was raised Catholic, and my folks were very devout. And so from fourth grade on, I had like a Catholic education. And in fifth grade, I was hit by a car. And the seed for being in God's service was planted at that time. I was in the hospital for about a week, and when I got back into the school, one of the nuns said, well, maybe God wants you for his service. And I felt like, oh, that's sort of special, that feels nice. And I cried all the way home. It was about a 30-minute walk. And I thought, okay, I'll be a priest then. And so I went through grade school, high school, Catholic high school, and I dated and did what any kid would do. And then right after high school, at 17, I left home and joined a group called the Viatorians, who were an order, a Catholic order of priests who taught high school. And I having gone to their school in Illinois, I was impressed. They were pretty avant-garde, and I enjoyed them. So I spent the next 5 years, the year of novitiate, where you just kind of taken out of circulation. You're not with your family, and you're not with your friends, but you are being groomed. And so after that, I went right into Loyola University and started studying biology. That was my major, and that all came from a love of nature that I had, I think, gotten from my dad, who was from the Pacific Northwest, and I always felt something in nature, just some sort of connection. So I was probably about a junior in college, having gone through some of the biology curriculum, and I was in my room, and I was feeling frustrated. I had what I used to call Neeler's knobs, And I've been on my knees for so long in prayer that they would like swell up. And I sat there at my desk and I said, I've been praying for a long time, and I want to know, I want something to happen, and I want it now. And my head rolled back and I had this light experience, and I don't even know how it could have lasted a second. I don't know. But when I came, it was just bright, brilliant light, and there was a lot of shaking. I remember when I woke up, when I came back, I was so in love with the other guys who were in this, it's called the Scholasticate. It's 4 years of college, and then they go into the seminary. And there were some temporary vows taken, and I had been doing that, and but this lasted for like 2 months for me.
And the it that lasted is what?
It was a sense of, it was almost an emotional appreciation of these other guys who I had been studying with, and who, they had their own degrees, and we went to mass every morning in the chapel, and you got to know them pretty well. But this was different. This was like an appreciation of something I didn't yet recognize. Not really. And I was just in love with these guys. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was like, what has happened? So I had started making friends outside of the community, and they found that to be disturbing.
I'm sorry, the theys who?
The priests in charge.
Okay.
And because I was supposed to be spending more time with just the guys in the community, but I was finding people that I was really interested in, men and women who were fascinating, and I had led a pretty sheltered life, I feel. So my junior year, they actually asked me to leave. And there was a kind of a backlash from the guys in the community, and they wrote letters, and they wanted me to stay. And so they put me on hiatus, or a temporary situation where I was on trial, essentially, to see how I'd perform. And but by the end of my senior year, I was like, this isn't it. I'm not getting all the answers. It's just, there's something missing. And I left on my own. And I continued with graduate school to go get a master's degree, and then in biology. But during that time, I had left the church. I had left all my friends who were in college with me, all these guys who were brothers, with the collar and the whole thing. And I really missed them. But at that same time, I met the woman who would be my wife to be. She was dissecting a cat, and that's
romantic.
That's how.
And sexy. I mean,
That's how I always describe it. I met her over a dead cat, and we just became fast friends, and lived together for about 5 years after that. And during that time, I was waiting. I just kept waiting. There's something I'm not getting yet, and it was probably about 6 or 7 years later. We had left Chicago and moved to Arizona, and we took a 6-week trip just looking for a place to live. And we hit every state except California, because I didn't want to live there for some reason. And we hit Flagstaff, headed south, hit Sedona, and coming through Oak Creek Canyon, which was spectacular. And I just said, when it opened up into Sedona, it was like, I said, this is it. She goes, take it easy. You don't know anything about this.
Whoa.
But actually I stayed there for 40 years. And we started up with I've done a lot of different things, you know, from driving a taxi to having an antique business, which I started in Sedona, and didn't know what to do exactly. And after a while, we really we weren't making any money, and it was getting harder and harder. And during that time, I lived at a place called Forest Houses, which was in Oak Creek Canyon, and it was beautiful. Although it was called the Diamond House, and it was in the shape of a diamond, and the walls were glass, and the wildlife was spectacular. So I was in my element, and in 77, early in 77, I was looking through something called the East-West Journal, which was an early publication that was for non-dual spirituality. And I saw something on the side called A Course in Miracles. And I told Kathy, my wife at the time, I said, that looks really interesting. A month later, Dr. David Hawkins comes into Sedona and from New York and starts teaching the Course in Miracles. And so that's what I stayed with for a year and a half, and with him. Now, Kathy was with it for about 6 months. She goes, oh, I know all this. And she that was it for her. But so Dr. Hawkins was an amazing guy, and real quirky. He had a really funny sense of humor too, and he used to really entertain himself quite a bit. And so the Course in Miracles came out in 76, and I picked it up in 77. And after being with Dr. Hawkins for about a year and a half, I branched out and eventually started to facilitate some classes. And little by little, the course became more and more popular, and there were other classes being offered in Sedona. But I just kept mine really small, like 2 or 3 people, you know. And you teach what you need to learn, and so that's what I was doing, and I found it spectacular. I mean, and I stayed with it from 1977 until 2017.
Wow.
And at that time, I had heard David Hoffmeister on an interview, and I thought, I've been at this for a long time, and he's saying some things that I'm really impacted by. And so I messaged him and I said, I need to talk to you. I said, because I feel like I've plateaued. He said, well, I'm going to be in Sedona in 10 days. So I met with some people. This is 2015. A couple of years later, I realized, yeah, this is a call, and I've got to go. And when Kathy and I had gotten married, we had lived together for 5 years, and then when we were on this journey in 76 looking for a place to live, we ended up getting married in Reno, Silver Bell's Wedding Chapel, Reverend Peter presiding. And
Cats or no cats?
oh, not yet. No
Okay,
cats
okay.
yet.
All right.
That experience I had told her, I said, look, if we marry, there may come a time when I have to leave. Because I could still feel a call. And so we got married. We went up to an Indian reservation, had our honeymoon on this big, beautiful lake called Pyramid Lake. And I was standing down by the lake and she was up where the tent was. And I looked at her and she was reading a book. And I walked up and I said, how are you feeling? She said, terrible. I said, me too. Let's take off these rings. We made spoon rings, you know, and let's take off these rings and pretend this never happened. And so that's what happened. And we were together for another 48 years. And
You said 48?
48, yeah. That included really the 5 years we had been living together anyway. But so in 2017, I got, it was real clear, yeah, I've got to go. I've got to go. And so I did, and went into community, was there at Living Miracles for about 1.5 years. And I had, it was kind of tough, you know, and but it was really about seeing what I was holding on to, you know. In the course, what is it, the Manual for Teachers, the development of trust section, and how I realized there were so many things I was attached to. I was attached to my name. I was attached to my wife. I was attached to my friends. I was attached to the course. I was attached on and on and on. And what happened during my experience there was I was being essentially challenged to fail. And I'd hear that, you need to fail, you need to fail. And I was like, what are you talking about? So there'd be functions assigned, and things that I was really good at, because I was a landscape contractor at the time, and I had left all that too. And things that I used to do easily just didn't work. One thing after another, I just kept failing and failing and failing. And I didn't get the point, and I finally got it. And it was, you need to fail because you're falling back on things you think you know. This isn't about showing us what you know. This is about showing us that you're willing to listen and say, I don't know. I don't know. Show me. And it's a call for the inner wisdom. It's a call for the Holy Spirit. Show me. And that took a lot, because I was very resistant to that. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. And after about 1.5 years of failure after failure after failure, I left. And but what I got from that was I could see that the whole point of it was to start listening to my own guidance. When I left, I had an incident with someone there who was in charge, and I just said, look, I just can't do this anymore. And so I was actually going to go to Utah to go to a retreat house there. And while on the way there, I went to another place in Camas and fell off the roof. I fell 12 feet head first, and I broke my wrist and cracked my pelvis in a couple places. And I was like, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And I didn't really have the answer for a long, long time. And a friend of mine told me, I asked her, I said, why do you think this happened? And she said, I don't know, but don't judge it. Just don't judge it. And I thought, well, that's taking me right out of the personal, I know mind, into, okay, show me. And so that was part of the lesson. And what happened while I was in the hospital recuperating was people would come, and nurses and some of these doctors, and there are only 12 rooms in this little hospital, and it was all covered by Medicare, which I didn't even know. I thought, I'm screwed.
Right.
I thought, this is not going to work. And it was all covered. And the food there was so much better than what I had been eating. You'd open the refrigerator door and there'd be, moths flying out. But it was amazing. The nurses and the doctors would come and they'd start telling me stuff about their lives. One nurse came up and she said, I'm having a hard time at home. I'm going to get a divorce. I'm like, what's going on? So I just kind of kept in touch with the community, writing little notes on Facebook saying, this is interesting. I mean, it's fascinating. And then finally, after a couple of weeks, I came out, and one of the guys from the community said, why did you leave? And I said, well, I just felt it was time. He said, oh, good. You followed your own guidance. And I was shocked that he said that, because I thought, you were telling me all along, don't follow my guidance, follow the guidance that you give me, because I wasn't mind trained at that time. So I thought, I was just shocked that he actually said this. And this is what I love about Awakening Together. The whole point of Awakening Together is to learn to listen to your own inner guidance, because there is no hierarchy. We're all the same. I mean, there may be the apparent look of time on this kind of horizontal timeline, but we're all doing our part to awaken to the reality of what we are. And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned. The reality of what I am. And that came really in the last 6 years, when I finally got that I'm not this guy trying to make a better life, which is what I thought I was. High school, playing baseball, doing different things, getting prepared to get a higher education so I could go out in the world and make some money, have a happy marriage, start a family, do all the things that you normally do. And then a couple of years after Living Miracles, I went into Namaste, spent a year and a half there, which was with James Twyman, and then over into the villa for another year and a half. And during that time, sometime in between there, I had an experience where it was with mushrooms, and I had set an intention before I had that experience. I said, I want to see the love that is coming to me before it hits the veil, before it hits my blocks, my beliefs. I want to see what that is. And I want then to talk to Jesus. And so I was living in a house I was sharing with a guy, and he had his experience in his room and I had mine in my room. And it was profound. It was really profound. And during that experience, the first part of it was like designs and colors and all the things that are phenomenal, that you would get from something like that. And then at some point, there was this experience where there was a presence, and all I can say is that I call them they. And I don't even know why, but they were there. And I said, I'm looking at this incredible experience, and I said, is this heaven? And they said, yes. And it's a very soft voice, yes. And I was like, wow. And I said, then for some reason I asked, is this what I am? And they said yes. And that changed everything. From that point on, it wasn't a soul looking to get to a place called heaven and being there with God. It was realizing that that's what we are. And wow, still choked up from that. So after that, the experiences, well, I'm going to back up a little bit because Regina's stuff came into my life when I was still in Living Miracles, and I was having, actually it was a little bit later, it was when I was in Namaste, and I was having an experience with a relationship of a person who was quite a bit younger than I, and she had been through a similar relationship with her husband where he served as like a guide, and she was saying, what can I do? How can I make you happy? And he was saying to her, quit deferring to me, quit deferring to me. And she didn't know what he meant. And I had a similar experience with her. She took the role that her husband had played for her, and she took that role for me. And because I was like, well, what is this? One of the things I learned early on was that my marriage was a good marriage. I was happy. But I also realized that it only took me so far. There was a lot of reciprocity involved. I'll do this for you if you do this for me. And I didn't even recognize that. I didn't know what that was. And I didn't get it until, well, a couple of years into it, into this being in Mexico. And then I realized, wow. Then I started looking back about all the other relationships I had in my family, when my mom was, she was a paranoid schizophrenic, and I left when I was 17 because I couldn't stand it there anymore. But I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and then a couple more who came before I left home. And I thought, well, what was it that she was? What was the purpose? What was the teaching? What was I to learn? And I thought, oh, she's teaching me about. My mom was teaching me about what it feels to be powerless. She's teaching me about what it feels to be betrayed or abandoned. And then recently, within the last 5 years or so, I realized, no, that's not it. It's actually, she was reflecting to me the beliefs that I already held about such things, the beliefs that I thought were true, that life was really about just having a better life. And if I wasn't able to do it, she was pretty restrictive, couldn't get out in high school all that much, and there was a lot there. And I got really angry, and I blamed her, and I realized, wow, she was one of my most powerful teachers. She was teaching me about the things that I couldn't see, that I actually believed in lack, believed that the world was happening to me, not for me. And these are things that I had to face in sequential relationships. And this is where some of Regina's early teachings were very helpful to me, because she had gone through situations where she had experienced real difficult times. And when I started reading this, I would sit with another guy who was also having relationship situations, and he was learning the same thing. And there was like this pushback from the person who we were trying to be attached to. And it was like a healing went on that I realized I would hear from her, "You want something from me. You want something from me." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, I want validation." That's what I thought. Oh yeah, I want validation. I want someone to say they love me. I want the things that I thought I was missing from my mom. I want this or that. And then what I realized was that these lessons were coming to me one after another, because they seemed to be repeating. And it was for me. It was for me to see that I believed that I didn't know what the real purpose of life was. One. And that what the purpose is, that I now understand, at least some, is to remember that I'm not what I thought I was. This guy that I thought I was awake in a sense. But the awakening, I remember all these different events in my early life, and I was aware of them, but that awareness was tied in with emotions, beliefs, thoughts, sensations, mixed in together with the observer. And that's when that happened with the experience with the mushrooms, there was a separation that occurred. That the observer then was identified as what we are, without all these other things attached to them. And that was such a mind blower. And to this day, I mean, it's not like it's there and it stays there. It's sort of like back and forth. You know, I'll forget, I'll get involved in the story, and then I'll, especially at night, I'll wake up maybe 2, 3 in the morning and have this kind of egoic persona, you know, trying to hold me in fear, or suggesting, you know, you're not enough. All the things that I heard from the teachings from awakening together, that were, I think, shared by so many of us, all of us probably, and how they're actually for us to learn from. And that was just so helpful, that I was getting this clarity. And so really, to this day, I'll have times when I'll be stuck in a story, but then that's like a red flag. It's like you're stuck in a story. Is it true? How are you really? What's going on? There's something here for you. And it's like, oh, right. So there's this pause and this opportunity to pull out of the story and just say, you know, just go into prayer. Show me, what am I to learn here? What is this about? And sometimes I forget, you know, and then it's sort of like there's this clarity that there's the horizontal timeline of the world, and there's this vertical time, which is like a break in the timeline according to Course in Miracles, and this is the direct connection with the truth. And we have that. That's what I realized. I did have that, except I didn't recognize it. I didn't know it was, I didn't get it, right, you know, and that was like this little shift in my experience. There's just this little shift. Oh, I'm not this guy. I'm what's noticing through this guy's eyes. There of this experience in this world, which is then changes even more. The experience of the world becomes different. It's like an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to see the form and the formless as being the same. And yeah, Helen Hamilton talks about that a lot. She said, look at your hand, there's form. And then look at around it, there's the formless, but it's all the same consciousness. It's because there's only love. There's only love. And that, and if you get used to the idea of stopping the focus on just the solid, what appears to be form all the time, and backing back and seeing the whole thing, seeing the space in which everything seems to be occurring. And that is a progressive exploration that just keeps getting better and better. And that's kind of where I feel like I am at the moment. I mean, sometimes I just cry, because it feels like such a gift to realize that this was a huge shift for me, and then to see and to recognize that this is what we love in each other, and recognize in each other not as separate but as what we actually are. So that still dawns on me time after time after time as different experiences. Yeah, so phew. Yeah, so I'm loving this community. It's been, it's taken me to Mexico, the community there, and here, and the retreats we have here, and we've been doing last year we had a dyad retreat that I loved, and the Tao, talking about the Tao and the writing of the Tao, Regina. That's so amazing. So it just feels like gift after gift after gift. And what used to be experiences when I started out and I thought I was giving up all these different things, it was like real high, real low, real high, real low, constant experiences like that. And then to realize these low points are where you do the work. It's like this is where I have an opportunity to say, show me. I don't think it should be this way, but something is happening, and I know that the universe is conspiring to do me good. I know that. I had written it on a calendar I had one time that I used to carry with me every day. And I'd see that little line, the universe is conspiring to do me good. And that I believed. I just didn't know how. Because so many things would happen. I go, that's not right. That doesn't help. And then it's because I had an idea of what the outcome should be. I was thinking I knew something. And it was all based on the past and based on my education, my family life, all these different things that I thought were common knowledge. And they were common knowledge in the world. And it's typically what the world believes. But these non-dual teachings are breaking us away from all of that, quote, common sense. And it's showing us that we're not who we think we are. We're divine, and we've just forgotten. And we're coming back to remember we're here to have these experiences. So very gently, we'll be taught through experience to remember what we are, what we are. And that was one of the things I loved about the dyad. Tell me who you are. Tell me what you are. I love that one. Tell me what you are, because that takes the, in a sense, the who out of it. It takes the personal out of it. It's just, and then it's like, what am I? What am I? And it offers an opportunity to really say, I don't know. Show me. Show me. I'm willing. I'm willing. And that's the other thing I was learning. I tried, well, I was a course Nazi when I first got the course. And I tried to tell my dad about it and my brothers and sisters and they, I learned later there are vibrational rates at which we can accept. There's readiness and there's willingness. And if you don't have them both, the vibration level can only allow you so much. And you can't understand what's being said if you're at a vibration that seems to be lower than one that seems to be a bit more advanced. But that was a huge lesson for me, because it reminded me of a story that Ken Wapnick told about Helen Schuckman, where he said at some point the Course in Miracles came out, and Helen said to Ken Wapnick, I know it's true, but I don't believe it. I know it's true, but I don't believe it. And he said, then people around him came to him and said, look, you've got to convince her, because they were patriots. You've got to convince her to change her mind about this. And he went into prayer, and what he heard was, no, that's not kind. She doesn't want to change. Leave her be. Let her be. Let her have her own. When she's ready, she'll be ready. And, she had all these miraculous events happen, and, all the beautiful things that happened for her, with her. And I thought that was really huge, because I thought I knew something, I thought I knew something. And I thought, people really need to know this.
Now.
We need now.
It's urgent.
This is really good stuff. It's like, this is the answer to all my questions. It made sense to me. And so yeah, when I learned back off and ask before you offer anything, is this for me to share? It's not up to me to say anything, and it's for me to ask every single time, what would you have me do? Is this for me? And sometimes people come and they say, can I do a one-on-one with you or something? I'll ask, is that okay? And if I get a yes, then yes, we do. If I get a no, that's for somebody else. It's not for me. And it's not helpful for me to say, yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll fix you.
I'll help.
I'll help. Yeah. Yeah. It's just not that. It's like, recognize what the inner wisdom is. To me, inner wisdom, the Holy Spirit, inner wisdom is like, I'm seeing through this tiny little pinhole all of the universe, except I'm only seeing a tiny little bit. And inner wisdom is something that I already know, but I don't grok it. I don't get it, because I'm looking through a tiny little hole. And the inner wisdom is this expansion of this whole, of this viewpoint. It's getting larger and larger and larger, and it goes on forever. that was one of the things that Helen Hamilton said. I love that. So it just keeps expanding. It just keeps expanding. And so I'm getting that, I'm getting that. So yeah. So I just next week, Susan Telford and the group from Gel Healing 3, we're almost done.
Wow.
Yeah. Next week, I think, is our last,
Wow.
yeah.
Congratulations for making it all the way.
Thank you. There's 16 of us.
Wow. That's very
16 of us. Because I remember last year you said, I'm talking to Regina, that lots of times once you get to the 7 steps to awakening, which are all these quotes, there's like over 1,500 quotes from these sages, awakened beings, that we would do 4 at a time every day for a year
and a half.
Year and a half. That's right, year and a half. And then step back and contemplate what you've just read. So you did like every single one, and you would do lots and lots, and I could see why it would take you 8 years. And for me, it was like I would read them, and they'd sound familiar and similar, but there was always something in there. And so I would do my contemplations, but I'd wait. It was the difference between meditation and contemplation became clear to me. Meditation was stillness. Contemplation was reading something and then waiting for the answer to arise. And that's huge for me. That was really, really helpful. So I would wait, I'd go, I don't know what they're all saying the same thing, essentially. Yeah. You're not what you think you are. And it's just repeating over and over and over and over and over, almost 1,600 times. But one of the things the Course in Miracles said was, you accepted who you think you are by denying what you are consistently. The opposite of that will be required to undo the same mistake. So then when these quotes would be contemplated, sometimes it came out of nowhere. And I'd write it out, and it was like one sentence after another. Write it, and then the next one would follow. Write it, and the next one would follow. Write it, and I don't know where it's going. I brought a sample. You want to read it?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Why? I'd love you to read it.
Okay. This one was. Some of them are funny. Right? Okay, so this was from quotes 1505 to 1508, and I can't even tell you exactly what they are at the moment, but one of the sentences was, attention liberates. So what came was, attention liberates, in quotes. When the TV series The Dog Whisperer came out, I watched Cesar Millan masterfully teach unruly dogs how to pay attention to his guidance, no matter how resistant they were at first. He showed that dogs want a pack leader so they can relax and be peaceful. Dogs would vigilantly look to Caesar for his direction and live happier lives than before. I realized that he was to dogs what the Holy Spirit is to me. I was learning to trust inner wisdom. When I paid attention to spirit consistently, I learned peace. I slowly resigned as my own master, for I had been poorly taught. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and render unto God the things that are God's, took on a whole new meaning for me. Now, when I seem to hear, sit, stay, I wag. So, it was like, I look at that and go, that's pretty good, I like that. Yeah, another one, just a short one was, and this acclimating to the field, the undifferentiated field, acclimating to the field instead of focusing on objects, thoughts, and emotions liberates. The identification with the thinking mind drips away like an icicle in the sun, as I reside in the liquid suggestion of remembering the quiet ocean I am. And I loved doing this. And there was so much resistance in the very beginning because we had just completed the second year, which had a lot of NTI, which is one of the greatest books I've ever read. And it was so compassionate, so healing, and so powerful, and so constantly affirmative that when we came to the 7 steps to awakening and you hear, you are ignorant. It was like, what's happening? And of course, ignorant, it was used really to mean you just don't know. It's not a slam. It was you just aren't aware of what you really are. And I was like, so I think we still had a lot of people. I think our numbers just went from like 20 to 16.
That's amazing.
Everybody's just stayed.
I started with 160 and ended up with like 12.
Wow. Yeah. And it was, and at the end, everybody's dreading the end of this. We come together every week and we love one another. And Susan Telford is astounding. She's a poet. She has her own counseling. She's what does she call herself? A doula of spirituality, a spiritual doula? Well, a spiritual midwife. Thank you. Yeah, and she is. She's terrific. And so what this is allowed for is this constant repetition. And I can feel that there's been a shift again. It's just going deeper, and it's helpful, really helpful. And Michael Blanchard, yeah, he's a character. He's an interesting guy. His focus is so, when he says meditate 12 hours a day, and I guarantee you're going to wake up, that's a tall order. But I can see where it's the same thing. It's the same practice, only done on a very myopic basis, just strict, really strict. And yeah, so I'm very grateful to Regina and Awakening Together for providing me with all this help. Because I was so fixed in what I thought I was. I remember my dad saying to me one time, I think I was probably freshman in high school, and I was playing on a baseball team, and we lost a big game. And I think I just threw my mitt on the stairs when I got home. And my dad looked at me and he said, if you think the world has got to change in order for you to be happy, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. And I was like, wow. But that actually was a very wise thing, because it's like, are you looking to the world to make you happy? Because if you are, there's no security in the world. There is there's clarity in knowing that the experience of living in the world is for us. It's like, it's consciousness. There's nothing else. There's only love, right? I mean, we know that. But something about having these experiences is the best possible teacher. The best possible teacher. There were some experiences that I had. Oh yeah. Part of that experience of that I had on the mushroom journey. I had a picture of Jesus next to me on the bed. I was in the bed, covered over and freezing. I was listening to this incredibly beautiful music that I had on my computer. And I had this picture of Jesus next to me. And I looked at the picture, and things are, hazy, as you would have in a mushroom trip. And I said, "Are you Jesus?" And he started to talk, and he said, "Yes." And then he started to morph into different faces, different faces. I'm the Christ, I'm the Christ, I'm the Christ, I'm the Christ, I'm the Christ. And I realized what we had always heard, we're all the Christ. And there it was for me in an experience. And that experience was unforgettable, unforgettable. And then they said, "You can stay if you want. If you want to stay, you don't have to go back into the body." And I was said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "You've been through this before. You can stay." And I was like, "I'm afraid. I wasn't ready." And my prayer to this day is, help me to be in a place that when my time comes, I am so excited to go. And I really am wanting to go home. And they said, "Well, what would you like? If you're not ready to go now, what would you like?" I said, "Give me another 10 years. And they said, "Okay." They said, "Whatever you want." And that was the thing. It was such a soft voice. "Whatever you want, whatever you want." And it was so loving and so kind. I thought, that was such a shift. Yeah. I had another experience where when I was with Living Miracles, I had a friend who was actually a roommate, and he was kind of what they call a link or a guide. I mean, he had more experience than I did, and he was pretty good with the computer. And they were asking me to do things, and I hated the computer. I didn't want anything to do with it, and so of course I got it to work with, and he was very good at it. And I said, "This is easy for you. I'm really, I'm just no good at it." And he stopped me and he said, "I will join you in your strength, but I will not join you in your weakness, in your belief in weakness." I never forgot that either, because that was actually really helpful. And I never see this guy anymore. He's around, he's traveling the world, but yeah, there were some very poignant experiences that I had. But I've had them at the villa, I had them at Namaste. I had them I went to Spain for about 4 months and lived with a group of people, about 4 or 5 people. And then COVID hit and I couldn't get out of there. I was going to go for 2 weeks. I ended up there for 4 months. And it was like, wow, okay, here it goes. And it was tough. There were times when at a moment's call, it could be in the middle of the night, meeting, boom, everybody would get out of bed, go sit and somebody was having an issue, something coming up, something that needed to be expressed and to be seen. And we were there to hold the space. We were there to like somebody held the space for me. That was one of the things that happened with my friend, who she kept saying, "You want something from me," and I didn't know exactly what she meant. And what it was is I wanted affirmation. I wanted filled up all the things that I thought were missing. I didn't think I was worthy. I didn't think, and in fact, this thought came to me just a couple of weeks ago. I didn't think I was worthy of being loved. I experienced that kind of with my mom. I experienced that with a few friends. Experienced that really with myself. Because one of the things she told me was, you've got to learn to love yourself. I said, what does that even mean? Because I'm thinking, learn about Dan.
Right.
Not on the mark. You know, it missed the mark. Learn about what's here, what we are, you know, what we truly are, what we really are. And then be willing to be aware of the awareness, aware of the noticing, notice the noticing of being just aware. And there's nothing there. I mean, it's like there's presence, there's clarity about, and that was another big thing that happened not long within the last 5 years. That awareness of awareness is it was Ramana Maharshi when he talked about that. He was speaking of just being, allowing yourself to be with that stillness, and then the mind will run off and start chattering, and then just bring it back. Start chattering, and so you can either look at it as burning off all the false ideas that you have about yourself, and then moving upward, or starting at the top and looking at, I am already awake, and then looking at what causes me to go back to sleep. And what is it? Do I love something in the world that's distracting me? Is there some attraction that I'm using to take the place of the divine that I am, and then bring that back? And I'm living next door to a woman who's very, very attuned to that, very clear. And so it's been helpful because having someone to share this with, and we help each other, you know, because either one of us can go off at times and just come back. We just hold the space. We just remind each other, who's speaking, what is it, what's happening, you know, having that introspection that you do so well. It's amazing what you do. And yeah, people have said, you know, and asked, you know, I don't have anybody around me. You know, I don't know what to do. I'm by myself, and I'm trying to study this course, either the Course in Miracles or what's going on with Awakening Together, and I don't have anybody. And the first thing I say is, don't try to do this alone. Yeah, it's a self-study, but it doesn't mean study by yourself. necessarily. It's like join. It's so helpful. And yeah. So I don't know where we stand in terms of time, but
Well, we have plenty of time, and
Okay.
I thought maybe what we could do next is see if anyone either in the sanctuary online or here in this room, all of these beautiful people. Wonderful, Jai, yeah.
And how many years ago was it when you asked for 10 more years?
probably about 4 years ago.
Oh, so you still have 6 years.
Yeah. Who's doing the math? Yeah. And you know, I had an aunt that lived to be 94, so who knows? But you know, what I look at is how do I feel? You know, how do I feel? Do I feel really I'm really happy. I'm really happy. And I feel like I've been helped. It's like you don't even have to search. It just comes to you. That was the other, that was another big thing, trust. This idea of trust came in so strongly. And this was primarily Sammy and I had this when we were at the villa. We heard trust, and we heard it from NTI, and we heard it from the course, development of trust. And Jesus in NTI, I think he says, or the Holy Spirit said, you have to trust me. I can't help you if you don't trust me. You've got to trust me. And the power of that, what it did is it felt like it took all this pressure off of me, off of my shoulders. I'm responsible for this. I'm responsible for awakening. I'm responsible. And it's like, no, you've got it backwards. What you think you're pulling to you is actually pulling you to it. It's just you can relax. And the more you relax, the more you'll love life, the more you'll appreciate what seemed to be problems and you had to solve. They now are becoming opportunities for you to say, show me what am I to learn? And that was, and I don't think I ever really didn't understand it so much as I have. And so now I'm sort of like, okay, so what's next? I have no clue. I'm living near Ajijic, Mexico, Lake Chapala. And I'm sort of like waiting for not anything in particular, but just kind of like watching. I spent a lot of time in a lounge chair, sitting in this big, beautiful lawn, looking at the clouds, and oh my God. I mean, I've seen such beautiful things. My background in biology, I remember talking to Jai about this, how we would talk about how the things that we seem to think that are outside of us, like plants, for instance, or anything like that, our consciousness, and it's all consciousness. And we're having this experience of learning not to see it as something separate, but to see it as an extension of our experience of what we are. And that is really helpful, because the nature thing really helps me. And I know you do a lot with nature and the nature walks. It's just, there's nothing to say. it's just so magnificent, and it becomes, it's sort of like it becomes more beautiful. Yesterday I was was working with John, my brother, and I said, okay, I need a break. And I laid down on the grass and I looked up at the sky, and the sun was shining on this ponderosa pine at the needles, and the needles looked like they were glass. I mean, they were like reflecting all that sunlight. I was like, damn, look at that. That is so beautiful. And so some of the things that down there in Mexico where I live, there are over 500 species of birds that pass through this area. And I gave my binoculars to John. I'm asking for them back because they are so good, these binoculars. And I need it. I just
He's showing the binoculars. You gotta.
See him down on the right? Yes,
oh,
he has them.
okay, he's not gonna, yeah, I know you're giving them back to me. He's got his own. Yeah. And so the just something like that, like birding, is just everything just becomes more, I don't know. And it's still developing, it's still developing. But it's like I'm just seeing with more appreciation, more awe, that I was. And it's I'm not the same guy that I was 6 years ago. And I think I'm so grateful for everything that's happened and is happening. And when I look back, it's like, I remember the course in there somewhere, it says, there's no reason to look to the past except to appreciate the miracles that you may have missed. And I thought, wow, that's really true. And so, because there have been so many, when you look back in your life, my ex-wife Kathy and we used to always wonder at how we were taken care of constantly, always taken care of. And it's become clearer and clearer that, yeah, you can relax. You can relax. You can trust me. I've got you. And I want you. What I want wants me.
Mhm.
And it's just, it's the clarification that the divine undifferentiated is experiencing itself to learn about itself through our experience. And all we have to do is relax our focus and just accept that we are so blessed and so loved and taken care of. And the definition of love and forgiveness in my mind has been so clear. Love is allowance. All things are allowed the Son of God. And I always think of your experience about over like this war battlefield, where the lesson or the message there was all things are allowed God's Son. And it wasn't about the dead horses or the mustard gas or all the dead soldiers or any of that. It was like, oh my God, no, it wasn't that at all. It was all things are divinely allowed because you're curious. And then when we stop being curious, we've had enough, and I think we're ready to go back. And but I'm still fascinated by things, and that's part of the nature thing. Yeah. What do you got for me?
Oh, I got plenty, but let me see if anyone else wants to ask a question. Or if anyone else, Shauna will let us know, I'm sure. I'll give that a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll jump in with a question. You talk about now, that's still kind of unfolding. And that especially with your neighbor, that you noticed where there's these dips where forgetting happens, and then
Yeah.
that's one of the practices. I mean, it's not a practice, but it's, kind of just joining with her.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, in a larger sense, can you give us an example of where forgetting happens and how it is now with this current iteration?
Yeah.
How it is that correction
Yeah.
comes about?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a graphic, it used to be up and down, emotional, and then depression and emotional, and now it's more like this. It's more like that. And an example of that would be, well, like, for this interview, I was mentioning to Sammy, I said, I'm a little nervous. And Suzanne, my friend, said, yeah, and she's used to talking in larger groups, and she said, it's natural, it's just natural. And then Peter said, just be yourself. And I knew that, right? But I woke up, when I wake up in the mornings, like maybe 2, 3 in the morning, there seems to be this personality that still is there. There's a difference. I can tell the difference, but the personality is still there, and it's kind of fearful. There's always that little fearful thing. So I use that as kind of a flag, and then I'll just go into how am I right now? I'm fine. And then the next thing is, I'll just say the mantra, I am that I am. And somehow it brings me out of that consciousness, out of that small limited awareness into an experience that's like not personal anymore. It's like being looked through, something like that. And so so there's the dip and the rise. And it's just getting to be smoother and smoother and smoother, and there's also this, like, I don't feel like teaching is part of this much anymore. I did it a lot. I did it in Sedona, with the course and here, and but what it feels like now is just watch, just keep watching, notice what's happening, and you don't need to be too active. Be with the stillness. And so that's what I try to do, because I remember, I think it was, I don't know if it was Nisha Sagata, but it said, my guru told me to say the mantra and be still and be with the stillness as much as you can. And he said it took him 3 years. And he was with it. And the more you're with it, the stronger it gets. And that's what I've noticed that. I've noticed that. It just gets to be more, not only stronger, but it's more familiar. It feels like, oh, that was another experience. Yeah, it feels like it's the most natural thing ever. that we would be pure awareness. So I had an experience. I was in, like, I don't know, 5th grade or something. Yeah. And I was getting ready to go out to recess and play some baseball. And I'm sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden I get this sense of awareness. And I was like, what's this? You know, and I there was nobody else in the room. It was just, I was by myself. What's this? And then these thoughts came in like, it doesn't make any sense. Where did I come from? It doesn't make any sense that I would learn all these things and then just disappear. Because I didn't believe in reincarnation. I didn't even know what reincarnation was. But there was that question. What's this? And then I forgot about it for 60 years. And then within the last 5 or 6 years, it dawned on me that was a revelatory experience as a kid. And so yeah. That there's another example of kind of going back and looking, you know.
And what did you quote? And you go back and you look to the miracles that you didn't appreciate at the time?
Yeah, I didn't even recognize
Didn't
it as being
recognize at the
miracles.
time. Right, sure.
Yeah. And there were tools that I picked up along the way too. This levels of mind. What's the other name for that, Sammy? Levels of mind. There's a
Levels
question.
of consciousness.
Well, that was David
Okay.
Hawkins, yeah. But that too was very, very helpful. I really like that. And he would talk about that quite a bit. The levels of mind are just, I perceive something that's on the outer ring. And then I have
Is it what I think I see?
no,
No,
but
sounds similar.
it is similar. It is similar, but it goes perception, emotion, thought, going down like a bullseye, perception, emotion, thought, belief, desire, right in the middle. So if and that's it. Thank you. And that's you're such an enthusiast.
I thought.
No, that's good.
I thought I know something.
Well, the desire part, there it is. It's like, okay, so somebody cuts me off. So I have an emotion like anger. Then I have a thought that just shouldn't happen. Then I have a belief that could have hurt me. And then underneath that is the desire. What's my desire? What do I want? Because it goes to either do I want what just happened, or do I want it different? Do I want something different?
Yeah, truth or illusion.
Truth or illusion? Holy Spirit's going to tell me the truth. Ego is going to give me, yeah, you need to fix this. This needs to be fixed. And it's similar with what's his name, Dietrich Walsack. You know, somebody just insulted me, or yeah, somebody insulted me, and it's about me. It's not about them. It's about me, always. And so those were the things that helped me.
Those are the tools.
Those are the tools.
Yeah.
Because it's never, when I start seeing the world as being a gift to teach me what I've forgotten, these lessons come in as experiences, and then you know there's either the push away or those, okay, I'm ready, show me. And that's really, I think that's all happened in a very concentrated form for me within the last 6 years. Yeah. Yeah. And there were a lot of tears shed. A lot of, yeah. And because I was thinking I was really losing something. I felt lonely. I was, in fact, I got kind of angry at Jesus. I was, okay, I'm waiting for you to fill the void, and but it was like I didn't see it was already being filled. He was already, the Spirit was already working with me constantly. It was just, I was still so convinced that I knew what it ought to be. And when I started realizing, you think you know something? Well, we're trying to show you that what you know is not helpful. Are you willing to hear? Are you willing to listen and then follow the directives, the direction? And that was trust again. That was the Holy Spirit. Follow me, follow me. I've got you.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you're going through a difficult,
You project your voice just a little louder.
how do you go about that? Like, what's your practice now when that rises up for you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to restate the question. So when you're experiencing something painful in the moment, what is your practice for how you come to that?
Well, there's a game that the what's happening game, that's very helpful. That's very helpful.
We're right towards the end, so we're just going to have you be as succinct as you can, but
Okay.
give you a full answer.
Okay. Yeah. So if I'm having an issue with something, and if I have the presence of mind to realize, say I've lost my wallet, and that could be a scary thing in another country, and I can't find it anywhere, and I feel this panic rising. If I can go to panic is rising and take the person out of it and just see it as an event that's occurring, that is very helpful, because it makes me realize who's panicking. It's going to be the guy who thinks he's dependent and vulnerable if he doesn't find his wallet. Yeah. I don't know if that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, beautiful. Thank you, my friend. This has just been a wonderful opportunity, and it's just so exciting for you all to wrap up Gentle Healing Year 3. And we thank you so much for spending time and sharing with us tonight.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so indebted, so grateful for everyone here. And yeah, it's obviously it's a life changer. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you for watching our satsang. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to join us live, please remember you can do so by visiting our website at awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary. Again, our website is awakening-together.org. Remember to click the bell for more notifications and subscribe.